Hello, this is the Cat's Library, and I will be your librarian today. In this week's video, I'm going to be redrawing a picture that I drew of a character that I called Bjorn Fisher about a year ago. Let's begin. So I'm going to start with what I liked about the original drawing. Now, this was originally supposed to be a nose study, but I just kept going, and then it became a whole face. And so that's the hook nose. And I think it turned out pretty well there. This was like one of my first times that I tried to draw realistic skin with the undertones, where there's different colors in it. So there's the red and the yellow. And I like that you can tell right away that he's a fisherman. What I want to change is that while I like the original nose, that was supposed to be like the point of the other one, but I want to put more dimension to it, especially in the bridge of the nose, so that you can tell where the hook of the nose is, because it goes from a small bridge of the nose and then it goes out abruptly. So I want it to have more dimension to it. And I gave up on the clothes and the background. Like originally, I put a little bit more intention into the clothes than the background, but I want to improve upon that in this new drawing. I also want to give him an expression, because right there, like what I have, it's not very good. He has a bit of an expression, but you can't really tell what it is. He's just really staring lifelessly into the camera. And I want to change the canvas size. So you can see right here that it was a 720 by 720 pixel drawing for the original one. But for the new one, I want to change that. And I'm going to change it to 2000 by 2500. Okay, so onto the drawing proper. I use the original drawing that I did as a reference, and I do a rough blocking layer in a thick, round brush with low opacity. Then I go on to the rough sketch that is with thinner line art that is in a pencil brush. I didn't draw in the beard originally because you have to draw what's underneath before you can add in something on top of it. So if you're drawing clothes, you have to know what the form under the clothes looks like. And if you want to draw a beard, you have to know what the chin under the beard looks like. I added a turtleneck, which is sort of different than the original drawing, where the shirt is sort of more of an ambiguous t-shirt design. I drew the hair here, and the hair is a bunch of squiggles because I drew him with very wavy hair, because that is my favorite type of hair to draw. Now originally, as you can see right there, I didn't have the skull shape completely figured out for my rough outline. Right there I got it, but it took me a little bit to get the skull shape right and the hair on top of it. And changed it once again. Yes. Now right here what I'm doing is I am testing the facial proportions and trying to see if the eyes are in the right place, and the shoulders a little bit earlier than that you could have seen, because the shoulders have to be 3 heads long and eyes have to be about a third of the way across the head, and they have to be 1 eye in between the other ones, and the nose is 1 eye length below the place between the 2 eyes. So I drew a guide for myself so I could see that. Now I'm drawing my line art here, my third layer, if you're keeping track, and I drew in some wrinkles originally, because the original drawing he has very smooth skin and he's supposed to be a little bit older. Now the thing about drawing with a painting versus like drawing with a cartoon is that you don't really have to have really clean line art, because none of this is going to be visible in the final. You just have to see where the colors are going to have to go originally. And here's like a quick tip from where you're drawing clothes, because this is like a little bit something that I changed from my other sketch to here, is you can see that I put the back of his jacket in there, because clothes go around a 3-dimensional form. After the line art was done, I added in a rough outline of what I wanted the background to be like with colors, because that'll help me decide like see the colors better when I go onto the flatting stage where I draw the flat colors for our guy Bjorn here. And like right there, I put in a little bit of shade of the blush in it because flat colors don't have to be like completely flat. They can be a little bit dimensional. I chose this color scheme because it's like the black and the white, and then it is the sort of more of an orangey olive skin tone, and then green because that sort of goes together. And he has a bit of more of a reddish blush, so that works as a complementary color scheme. And you want to draw the skin before you draw the eyes because you want to work from back to front, and that's why I did the jacket before I did the turtleneck shirt. And this is my undertones that I was so proud of from the last drawing, and you do that, and then you make it sort of fade into the background of the skin. And this is my first shading layer, first of many, many shading layers. And this is the hard shading layer. So there's hard shading layers where it's very solid shapes, and then you have the soft shading layer, which will make this look a little bit less cartoonish, but I'm not onto that yet. Still shading. And I wanted half of the face right there to be in complete shadow because that is the side of the face. And now I'm onto the hair. Now the hair is curly, like as we saw from the sketch, so all of the shading has to also follow those curves. And here, I added in the beard. Again, because, like, it was looking pretty good without a beard. But I wanted to add it in because so that it followed the original, and I'm glad I did. It looks really good. And I have to shade the beard too. And now on to the first highlight layer. Like, I like doing my hard shading and my hard highlights. And the hard highlights are basically just the rim light. And I do that before I do the soft layer, and some people do it the other way around where they do the soft layer and then the hard layer, but I like to do it this way. So I added in the soft shading layer, make sure that the hair looks a little bit more three-dimensional, put a little bit on that bridge of the nose that I was working on, making the cheeks on a different layer. And now the soft highlight layer, which is anywhere where I didn't put soft shading, I put in soft highlights. Now this is about where I stopped for the day, and I took some feedback about what was up with the drawing, and so then I added in the sideburns so that they cover up that one ear, because both of the people that I asked said that there was problems with the ears. I also changed that little thing of hair at the very top of his head because it just seemed a little bit off and a little bit wrong. And now here I am going through all of my layers and making sure that there aren't any unnecessary ones, and also shading the sideburns, which I did on the wrong layer originally. Now when you're drawing things that are white, you want to add in a little bit of dimension to it. Still, it's not like straight up white. And also I was looking at the hair that I'd drawn, and it looked very digital looking, and it didn't have enough texture. So I took a pencil brush and I went and individually penciled in like each and every strand of his hair, like that you can see. It was a very meticulous process, and it was very fun. And it also adds in a bit of shading to the dimensionality because there's only so much that the light can hit of the hair. And you can see right there that I take the individual locks of the hair and also shade with the same pencil tool. Now I add in the highlights right there, and it's the middle of the hair strand. So you want both of the edges of each lock of hair to be darker, and you want the middle usually to be lighter. And I had sort of decided that the light source was a little bit more, but it's from our right, and so there would be more highlight layer coming in from the right. And I took that layer and I duplicated it twice so that I added even more dimensionality to the hair. like as a type of chromatic abrasion. So about here, I add in some extra detail to the skin. And I added in like more dimensionality. So the edges are darker and the middle is lighter, sort of thing. And I added more green around the bridge of the nose because I'd been experimenting with a different drawing and I'd done that and it had looked pretty good. So I put it in here. And I drew the eyes. The eyes are spheres, so they have a lot of shading that goes into them to make them look right. I also added a lot of detail to the irises specifically, since that was something else that I had trouble with in the original drawing. Now, I was looking at the cheeks and the eyes and saw that had a lot of wrinkles, but the forehead didn't. So I added a bunch of wrinkles to the forehead and changed up the color slightly so that it blended in a bit because I made it a little bit too yellow. Had to dial it back a bit. I also added a bit more of green to the skin and more green olive undertones. I decided that I wanted to make the eyes a little bit smaller so that they were more proportional with the size of the face overall, because they were looking a little bit too cartoony for what I wanted. And I still put some highlights in there. I had trouble with the eyelashes specifically. Like, I tried the eyelashes like a couple different times, but they didn't really look good from afar because I don't have that much practice drawing eyelashes that are cartoony or more realistic, either one. But I think that what I ended up with works, even though they're barely visible. Added more texture on the eyelash. Yep. And right here, I added more dimensionality to the nose and to the lips because I wanted them to stand out from the cheeks, and I'd already put like effort into making the cheeks more textured and more colorful and shaded. So I wanted that on the nose and the lips because those are farther away than the cheeks. They're closer to us. And I added in more shading because I was thinking that the eyes looked like they were on the same plane as the forehead, and I wanted him to have more of a prominent brow, and then I just added more shading to it overall. That was on a completely other layer than the other one. I wanted him to have more of a shiny rain jacket, and I wanted him to have ribbing on his turtleneck. I also wanted the hair to be a little bit more fuzzy. So here we are darkening up the rain jacket, because if you have more dark, then when you have highlights, then they are more visible and it makes things shinier. Whereas the turtle, yep, there's the white. I did it in red so that I could see the ribbing of the turtleneck a little bit, and then I changed the color up a little bit, tried to add more to it. And now, since that wasn't working for me, then I went and I tried to redo the background because that was the stock background, if you so remember. And so I redid it. That was right behind him, so I don't know why I covered up that bit of sky right there. The shading on those mountains looks pretty good. Like, now that I'm looking back, like the blue and the red like that. It's a little bit fantastical, but it sort of serves its purpose. It looks pretty good. I added in some water, and water is more difficult to draw than rocks for me because it moves around a lot. It's always in movement, and it's sort of transparent, and so that's a little bit difficult for me. And also, I was having trouble getting the color of the water to be what I wanted because I wanted it to look a little bit like the sky. I put a gray filter over all of it so that it looks a little bit more desaturated than our focal character there. I added some shadow under his beard because I wanted it to look like the beard had a shadow. I made the shoulders a little bit bigger because it wasn't proportional. And I added even more shading to it to try to make it even more shiny. More shininess. More. And it looks very, very shiny. A little bit rough, but very shiny. And I tried to add more ribbing because the ribbing wasn't really seeing through. You didn't see it. And there we go. I did this drawing of him, and then I added in an oil paint filter. And the way that you get an oil paint filter is that you ask my dad, "Hey Dad, how do you put an oil paint filter on in Photoshop?" If you don't have that, then Google will suffice. Goodbye.